Hello. Good evening. Good evening. Good evening, everyone. My name is Rhea Petrie, and I welcome you to Purpose Conversations Volume 8. As we know, this is a dear passion of mine, and it is a dream of mine, and it's a pleasure to have you all here this evening. I've got some amazing guests, and we are not going to delay in introducing them, but I do want to go over just a few things. As you all know, we are live and we have a chat that loves to hear from you. So please do not hesitate to comment in the chat. We've got some amazing questions that already came in ahead of time. But I do want to give a little backstory about why I chose this topic for this episode. One, it's near and dear to a lot of hearts. Divorce and tough breakups are something that affects all of our lives, whether we experience it or not. And so I'm excited for our guests tonight who were brave enough to have this courageous healing conversation right along with me. And I'm hoping that you all will take a little nugget of inspiration or a nugget of encouragement for your journey. So without any further ado, I want to welcome my amazing guests. I'm going to start in the order that they are on my screen. So Shawnee, hey, so before I get to each guest, I would like each of you to introduce yourself, to say your name, what you do, and then what interested you in joining this conversation. All right, so I'm gonna let Shawnee, you go ahead and get started.
Good evening. My name is Shawnee Brooks. I'm a personal injury lawyer in Atlanta, Georgia. I was interested in this topic because I think it's a topic that isn't, discussed much, especially in the African American community. Rhea happens to be a personal friend of mine. We went to college together, so I was very excited when she asked me to participate, and I'm very happy to be
here. Yay! And I am happy to have you here. That's what I'm talking about. Friends looking out for friends. All right, Miss Elena, let's hear from you.
Hi, I'm Elena. I am an instructional designer and investor. And the thing that interested me about this particular topic is divorce. I feel like and tough breakups can be a very isolating event in your life. And I wish that I would have had this kind of dialogue or thing to watch as I was going through my process and my journey. And I just think it's important to let people know that they're not alone and to be encouraged, and you can get through it. That's it.
Yay! Yes, you can. All right. And so next to Rachel.
Hello, my name is Rachel Brown. I run an internship program for Mount San Antonio College in Southern California. And what interests me in this particular topic, along the same lines as what Elena shared, was that divorce is something that we go through privately but have to live publicly, and living in that tension and wishing that you were able to not keep it so secret, so that you could have support during that time. I think the other thing which interested me in this particular topic is being a woman of faith, knowing that divorce was not a reflection of my faith, nor is marriage the pinnacle of my faith walk. And so that's why I'm joining here tonight.
I got to remember to unmute myself when I get to my finger snap moments. Thank you, thank you, thank you. All right, and Brother Marcus.
Hi, everybody. I'm Marcus Freeman, and I'm an actor, writer, director. You see the blue screen. That's how I do my auditions. And I thought this topic, one, Rhea asked me, because Rhea's husband, Andre, we've been friends a long time. That's my brother from another mother. And I just felt like it was time for me, as my healing process, just to talk about it, just to, as someone mentioned earlier, just to go through that process, because you do go through it in secret, but then there has to be a point where you have to talk about it, and then talk about it from a point of not reliving it, but talk about it from a point of moving forward. And so that's where I'm at today, just moving forward. And I hope that whatever I say helps someone. Hope everyone is helped by whatever is being said today on the show.
Hey, I love it already. You guys, I'm telling you, I always know when I choose right. Let's jump right into it. So I love what each of you touched on, and that's really the premise of all of the shows that I do. Is never, ever, ever to do anything but to shed light on a topic, to hopefully drop a nugget of encouragement or just something that a viewer can leave and say, you know what, never thought about it that way, or hey, I have crazy faith, I'm like, maybe they'll walk away and be set free in a particular area. And so I want to first say thank you to everyone who submitted questions ahead of time. I know that our chat, a lot of times we get some right now questions in the moment, so I am going to be paying attention to those as well. But let's get right in. So we have 3 segments. And so the way the questions were categorized, one, we always talk about personal experience. And so I always tell the guests, and I already shared with the beautiful guests here, share whatever you feel comfortable to share. Obviously, this is an authentic space. But again, whatever you feel led to share, that's what we all about. And then we're going to talk about healing, because that was a big, Marcus, you mentioned that word. And that one is also something that I know, having tough breakups in my life, experiencing a healing just to be able to love. And, you know, they always say hurt people hurt people. So we want to mitigate that. We want to minimize that as much as we can. And then lastly, we're going to talk about community, because we know that divorce affects more than just the 2 individuals getting it. So let's start with experience. So question is, how long have you been divorced, and were you the one who filed? I'll throw in this other question because I know, you know, it kind of goes along with that, but how did you know that it was time to make it final? So whoever wants to jump in, please. That's the deep end of the pool, as my as my pastor says.
I'll jump in.
All right.
So I was with my former spouse for 15 years, married for 12. I've been divorced for we've been separated for 1.5 years, officially signed papers this year. How did I know it was time? After my husband left the house, I waited about 6 months, hoping that our marriage would honestly be restored. Even though my husband had already decided that he only wanted to be a father. He made that very clear, and he's a very, very good father. But he wanted to be a father and not a husband. And he chose to not only leave our household, but to move in with another woman at the time. And I waited 6 months. What changed my mind in that 6 months was I had to be sober-minded about the actions and not just the words that I saw or heard. And it came a point where all the actions were saying, Rachel, this isn't going the way that you would hope it to go. And it's not a direct reflection of you not praying or fasting or not going to church or what, all of those things, that I had to respect his choice and his free will and let it be. And so I was the one who ended up filing after 6 months, him moving out of the house.
Thank you for that raw honesty. I appreciate that. And I just love that you touched on, you know, your faith in that. In the beginning, you were saying it wasn't a reflection of that, because I think a lot of times in the Christian community, or in communities of faith, I won't even put it as just Christians, it's a taboo topic. And I think, like you said, it's not discussed until you look up and there it is. So I'm so grateful that you shared that that piece. Anybody else?
I'll go ahead and go. It's been 2 years. Officially, it was 2 years in June that I've been divorced, and I'm the one who filed papers. So it's interesting. I actually told my ex-wife that, hey, I want a divorce after 16 years. We're actually married for 16, and it was tough. We went through, you know, a lot of things within our marriage, you know, family wise, personal wise, and we had been through a lot. And what made the decisions that I noticed that deep down inside something in me, I was becoming depressed. At first, initially, I thought it was work. Then, you know, work changed, you know, different job, but I was still feeling the weight. And what I realized is that I was married to a person that I felt that wasn't, and I am being careful with my words, that I felt that wasn't bringing me the best of me out. And I feel like I was dying in the inside. So I had to make a decision. That wasn't easy because I asked for a divorce a couple of years earlier, and we went through marriage counsel and everything. But then the same things came up again. same issues. And I said, you know, this is the moment where I have to make a decision. Either I'm going to continue to be, you know, dying in the inside, becoming depressed, or I'm going to make that change. And I made that change, and it was not easy. She did not want a divorce, and we did go through, we went through some stuff. But respectfully, we went through it privately. You know, we went out a lot on social media. And then eventually, our divorce was final in about 2 years ago in June. So that's where I'm at.
Thank you so much for your honesty in that. I see, Shawnee, did you want to say something?
Yeah, I was just going to share mine real briefly, not really in so much detail, but I was married for 6 years, and I've been divorced now for 4 years. And I guess I filed for the divorce, and the motivated the divorce. Well, an interesting part of the story is the reason for marriage. So I had just gotten out of law school. Was in my career, and I felt, well, it's time for me to get married because I want to have a child, I want to have a family. So my motivations for getting married were, I was treating it like work. I was, saying if I work hard, I can be a success in my work, and I should be able to do that in marriage and in any other aspect of my life. But marriage doesn't work like that, which I learned pretty quickly. So ultimately, I filed for divorce. It was a little bit of back and forth as far as are we going to get divorced or not? But people say, hey, I want a divorce, or both people say I want a divorce, and then you kind of get off that track, and then it's just something that's kind of thrown around a little bit sometimes, without whether or not there's real meaning or intention behind it or not. Is it really just depends on the situation of the couple. But the reason for the divorce, the catalyst for the divorce, was because I felt that I had a son at the time. He was 4. I didn't believe that me and his mother continuing to be in a marriage was in his best interest. That was my number one motivation. And my second motivation was that we didn't have we just were two people that really weren't compatible. I'm not here to bash her in any type of way. It's not that type of situation. She'll be fantastic for someone else, I'm sure, but we just weren't compatible on a number of levels, which would help us be successful for the long term, I believe. So I filed for divorce, and that was basically the reason.
Loving the honesty. I love the candor. I think all of you all are touching on different aspects that a lot of people do struggle with silently. So I'm so grateful that you shared that. And I know you mentioned having a son, and we do have some questions that deal with like how to positively or in a healthy manner transition when you have children. So that will come up. Elena, did you want to touch on it, or do you want me to go to the next question?
I'll just go really quickly since everybody shared this. But my story is a little bit of a slow cook. My ex and I were college sweethearts. We were very close. We were always friends. Our foundation was friendship, which I think speaks to how we are able to manage co-parenting now. And I know we'll get there. But we were married for about 6 years, and then we were separated for probably 2 more years. And then we've been divorced officially now for about 4 years. And I think the part or the moment I knew that it was time to, for us to part ways officially was when I personally felt like I had to guard my heart from someone that I had never guarded my heart from. And that just was not a good space for me to be in, and nor for him, right? So I think we were both emotionally kind of tapped out, and we knew it, and it was mutual, and we were able to move forward after that. But I think anytime you have to protect yourself against the person that you're supposed to be the most vulnerable with, the most open with, then that can be an issue. So I think, I officially did the paperwork, so to speak, but it was a mutual decision.
Thank you for sharing. And so now that we've heard from each of you, I know from my observation, I think a lot of times people feel ashamed, or they feel like, you know, I don't know if you all has felt this way, because this was one of the questions, but I want to ask each of you how you felt your divorce impacted you. Because we know, one quote that I shared in this segment, it said, divorce is known to wreak havoc on emotional, mental, physical, spiritual, and financial health. So how do we heal from it? So I want to ask each of you how your divorce impacted you, and if it did. I mean, I know a lot of times there's always silver lining, there's always a lesson to be learned. So how would you say it affected your overall view of marriage or of relationships, or if anything you'd want to share from personal impact?
Marcus, you go ahead.
Oh, all right. I think with me, my story is a little bit interesting. All transparency. I was living at the time before I met my wife. I was living with my mother. So I'm living with my mother, and then I meet this woman, and then now I go from living with my mom, and then living now with a wife, and now I'm being a husband. And for me, I never got that opportunity to live on my own. And I feel like that is one of the reasons, or that initially caused maybe havoc in the marriage for me, because there was some things that I needed to go through personally. Not that I needed to sow my oats or anything like that, but I needed to know who Marcus was. So after the divorce, here I am after 16 years, I got to deal with me. So I'm beyond, okay, I'm not living with my mom. So I'm now, thankful for my uncle who opened his home to me. And I stayed with him for about 3 months. And then after that, I'm on my own for the first time in my life. I've never lived on my own. So just starting over and really, like who is for me, who are really my friends. There are people who were my friends because of who I was married to, and the church that I belong to. So now, how do I now navigate this? How do I navigate, 16 years, her family, my family, and then people who you in your own family or friends who you feel like you thought, they would not necessarily take your side, but be respectful of your decision. And it turns out that it wasn't that way. So for me, it was like a rude awakening to like, you got to find out who you are. So there was some shame, some guilt, some fear of like, can I do this? And I'm real thankful for my uncle who said, hey, you gotta get off your ass. I don't know if we can cuss on this platform. I don't know, but it's time for you to get off your ass and really find out who the hell Marcus is and who is Marcus outside of marriage. Because either I was somebody's son or I was somebody's husband, but I've never been Marcus. So that whole discovery of finding out who I am, that journey, and that working through all that, and it takes a lot, and it's a day-to-day thing. I'm not saying like, oh, now everything is all well. I mean, I have my days, but I'm much better today than I was going 2-3 years ago. So
Thank you for sharing that. Shawnee, were you going to say something?
Yeah, just briefly, I just wanted to say, I know one of the questions that was asked is, what's your view on marriage after being divorced? I think marriage is beautiful. It just is a matter of being married to the person that's best for you, or somebody that's going to real companionship, somebody that you can actually look at and call a companion versus, you just being married to someone, So I think one of the issues was, for me, and Marcus made some good points about kind of knowing yourself. I had a lot of experience just kind of living on my own. I lived on my own since I was, in college. But one of the issues was I was going through the motions, like going through my success ladder. So I went through undergraduate school, of course, where, we were there together. And then after that, shortly after that, I worked for 2 years, and then I went to law school. So I was continuing like on with my career path and trying to become a financial success and stable, so I could prepare myself to be a husband. I believe would be a good husband at the time. But the real issue was over the course of the time, I never focused on, real relationships. What I focused on was just getting through school, doing school work. So once I had completed all that, I felt, well, hey, it's time for me to have a wife so I can have a family. And this was my plan. However, I didn't invest the time and energy in finding somebody that I had very similar interests with, that I like spending time with, kind of a best friend. And I know a lot of people hear that term, I want to marry my best friend. And I used to think it was weak. I used to think, well, that kind of thinking is a weak way of thinking for a man. It sounds like woman stuff. But I heard a very a guy I really respected kind of break it down, and he just kind of explained on how many levels you need to be communicating and spending time with and building with that woman, or if you're or and conversely that man if you're in the wife side of it. But I think that again is beautiful. It's just a matter of being with a person that is going to be the right companion for you.
Mm.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I know that we got some comments in the chat. It said, I got to deal with me. Thank you all for your vulnerability and honesty. Wow, I've only heard women say that. That's good. Who are you? 100% true. Thank you, guys. This is exactly what we hope to engage. I want to kind of circle back. I'm going to jump around a bit because, Rachel.
Can I just speak to the emotionality, though, of divorce?
Please, speak to it.
To say it sucks is an understatement. And I know I'm the newbie in the group as far as being divorced, and we've been separated for some time, but it feels like death. And I remember saying I would rather him be dead, not because I had animosity towards him, but because I felt like the grieving process would be easier because it would be finite. It's over, it's done, I can process, we know how to move forward, me and the children. But because he is actually alive, it is as if I'm attending the funeral over and over and over and over and over again. And I don't want people, you got to go through that process. You can't skip the days where you don't want to get out of bed. You can't skip the panic attacks. You can't skip why am I sitting in church right now? You can't skip making sure your kids still make it to their events. You can't skip even the conflict that you have with your former spouse if you happen to be in that situation, because I didn't do all things right at the beginning. We're great now, but we want to avoid all of those things. And I just don't want it to sound like, as I discovered myself, divorce was great. Like, no, it's hard. It's hard, and hard things are okay. That we are built to do the hard stuff. You are made to do the hard stuff. And it's okay that you have hard days. You just got to get up tomorrow and get up tomorrow. And eventually those hard days become easier. And you can't rush the process. I tell people, use therapy and time. You need all three.
Yeah, I have the. I was going to chime in. She's absolutely correct. It is because if for those who are Christians who know the Bible, the two become one. So you've been one with this person for whatever period of time, and now all of a sudden you separated. So it is a mourning. There is a death. There were points after we were separated for a little while, but there were points where I didn't even want to remember good times in our marriage. Like, no, I don't want to even remember that, because you're trying to go through it, and you mourn, you do, and it is a sadness, because whether it was good, bad, or indifferent, there is a sadness that you're going through, and that's you can't heal without pain. I guess that's the best way to button it up. You can't heal without pain, and so you have to go through that pain of missing, crying, the pain of everything that you went through, all those things, to get to whatever point you get to where you're headed. I'll say, to where you're headed. Because I don't think, for me, I won't say I get over my divorce. Oh, get over. No, I'm moving from my divorce, because that is a part of my life. 16 years, that's almost a decade and a half of my life that I had. So you can't just get over that. So it's a process, and it's a healing process, and it's ongoing. It's constant.
I want to talk a little bit about that. I know behind the scenes, I saw a lot of head nods when I changed the screen. Elena, did you want to add something to what Rachel said?
No, I'm just happy that she said what she said, because it is so true. And this is realism, so we have to keep it real. It feels like trash. It feels like death. For me personally, it was like, who am I? Like, what do I want? What do I think? How do I move? It sucks from all angles. And the only way to get to the other side of it is to go through it. And even years later, a year later, 2 years later, if you are not going through that process or getting help or enlisting therapy or a therapist, you are liable to kind of carry that throughout your next relationship or the next phase of your life. Like, it is a very difficult thing to endure, but here we are. But it's hard.
Here we are.
One more thing, Rhea. In your mourning process, recognize that you are mourning your future. You're mourning the future grandchildren you thought were going to be jumping on your bed with you and your husband. You are mourning the graduation date. You are mourning the family get-togethers. You are mourning the vision that you had when you said I do, because most people don't say I do with the intention of being divorced, right? So I'm also mourning what I planned in the future, us being old, whatever that looked like, on rocking chairs, smoking pipes. I'm mourning all of those things. So the mourning is continuous, but we have the capacity to live in that duality of I can mourn and still have joy. I can wake up feeling kind of defeated and have hope. Like, that's the beauty of the way that God has created the human being and the human spirit, that we are capable to live in that tension. So we shouldn't feel ashamed or less than, or that we can't, do these things when we have what we consider negative emotions. I've come to feel like emotions are emotions. What they are. We don't need to put them in a box, because when we start to categorize them as negative and positive, that then makes us then define what we're looking at in our future a certain way, right? And along with Shawnee, I think marriage is beautiful. It still has some of my most beautiful memories involve my former spouse. And divorce also shouldn't rob you of what was beautiful in your past as well. You should be able to hold on to both.
Ooh, you guys are touching on so much. And I wanted to ask that because I know we talked about, well, let me get some of these quotes in here. We talked about, you're so brave, you can't skip conflict, that's transparency. Get some shout outs here. The death of many friendships, which I also want to touch on. Your mourning future plans, Jesus, therapy, and time. That was the first one. I missed that when you said it at first. Moving on, you're mourning your future. I can mourn and still have joy. Has divorce jaded your view on getting remarried? And that is definitely one of the questions that is coming up. So we might as well go to that. So Rachel, you just talked about the paradox of being able to mourn but still have joy. And I actually would like each of you to answer this, because whether you filed or not, you all kind of spoke to the fact that it is an abrupt transition. And a lot of people are taken out by those transitions. A lot of people are not so receptive to therapy. They don't just jump up. A lot of people become recluse. A lot of people become jaded and they turn to things, and the whole trajectory of their lives can be different. So I'd like each of you to share with that some things, tangible steps. What did you do to be able to transition in a healthy way so that you can have joy and not be stuck?
I'll just weigh in real quickly on that. This just kind of started off. I'm sure everybody wants to weigh in on this. I guess and we're going to have many different perspectives here, because some people have been married longer than others. Some people have children, multiple children. So all of that you have to consider and factor in. So, and what you want for the future. So if you've been married a long time, you have several children, your children are older, you don't really want to have additional children, that might be something you may factor in moving forward in relationships. You have to always factor your children in. I have a son, he's 8 years old now, but of course it's not about, and when I thought about moving on after my divorce, which again, I filed, I was, it was time, and the best thing for me, it actually was the best decision for me. It's really enhanced my life in many different ways. And it's also been a benefit for my son as well. But when I looked at the idea, the prospect of getting back into the dating, scene, just thinking about it, I had been married for 6 years. So of course I had feelings, or am I, can I still get out here and, get ready, get back into the swing of things? Am I going to be rusty? And, what can I bring to the table? And also I have to factor in more than just myself. It's no longer just me. It's me and my son. We're a package deal. So if the woman and my son is the most important thing, and making sure that I'm a good father to him and I protect him and all of these things. I know people like to look at it from the female's perspective, like the female protecting the children from some man coming in, but you also have to look at it conversely and look at on the men's side. I don't want to have a series of women coming in and out, of my son seeing this. What kind of role model am I for my father if I let that happen, or he sees, this type of situation? So I'm very guarded about introducing my son to different women. I wouldn't do that. I would have to have a consistent amount of time and I would have to be seriously dating before I would even consider something like that. And then once you wrap your mind around, hey, am I going to consider this? Then you're also looking at whether or not this is going to work. My son or my children are going to be receptive, or are they going to be good with your children? It's just something that you really have to consider and look at. But what I'll say what I'll say about it is, for me personally, the experience wasn't as bad as I had anticipated. I thought that it would be a little bit more challenging, but after kind of going through the process, so there's light at the end of the tunnel. I say all of that, to say that it's not like you're dead just because you get divorced, or you're dead because you have children or you have a child and now you're divorced. What is my, I guess my market value for getting back in the dating scene, so to speak. So I would just say that I'm definitely still open to marriage and open to love and open to marriage. I'm actually in a very beautiful relationship now. But it did take some time. So I didn't just kind of jump back out there and say, hey, I used to be married, I want to continue to have the same type of feeling I did when I was married, or at least in the beginning of my marriage. I'm looking for that. No, what I did was I took time to kind of make sure that I identify everything that I was looking for moving forward to accomplish my goals for my next marriage, if that's in the cards for me, which is to make sure that really for me, it's compatibility and a real partnership versus a one-sided or I guess the best way to put it was not fully evaluated partnership. So that's just my take on it.
Ooh, if you can't tell you are an attorney, I don't know what it is. You better walk in your truth, Johnny. I love that.
Right.
I love that. I do want all of you to answer that. Marcus, I can tell you want to say something.
Yeah, I was going to say, my I don't know about the other panelists, but my story is a little bit different. So my ex-wife, she already had children, but we didn't have children together. So me being on my own is like I'm now I'm on my own. But I will say the hardest thing, and it's still hard, that you build a relationship with children who are not your children, but you're there. So that process of that is difficult, and I will say it still is. Now, I will say that they're older and they're on their own. There will always be a love for me that I have for them. But that was a difficult thing. So now going into the dating part, now it's like, okay, I'm 16 years. okay, let me get out there. Like, you know, like Shawnee said, let me get out there. And you realize, wait a minute, it's different now. You know, when I got in, you know, it was a different time. Now it's, you know, it's different now. You know, women different. How we communicate is different. How what your objective and stuff is. So, you know, I realized like, wait a minute, I'm not ready for this. And then I was going, of course, for the physicality of things. And I had to realize I need to be by myself. I really need to be by myself. And I ended up dating like two women. One, I felt it just wasn't time for me to date. And I feel like I ruined that relationship because I just wasn't ready to be in a relationship. And it's difficult when you first go out and you're trying to date. You are, because I'm missing the companionship. I'm missing waking up to somebody in the morning, whether if I wanted them there or not. You're used to someone always being there. So now, you know, you have to realize that loneliness is a distraction. It really is. You need to be alone. And if I may be alone, but I'm not lonely. I have friends, I have family that I can reach out to, talk to, sit with, and those are people who love me genuinely. And there's not, you know, anything of I need something from you, you need something from me. So I had to work through that and realize, hey, I need to be by myself and get to know me before I go out and date it, because it's, you know, I don't know about y'all, but it's different and it's cruel. I'll just say that I've been on some dates and and I'm like, what did I get into? What did I do? So you got to tread lightly and navigate that.
So glad you touched on. I love that your honesty in that, you know, when you said you started to date and you think you ruined a situation, because you know, that does happen too. I think, you know, back in the day, they say the best way to get over somebody is getting under somebody else, but that's not always the way. Okay.
No.
So I'm so grateful that you shared that. I do want to hear some more tangible steps, ladies, that you took. We've heard from the gentleman in terms of getting to where you are today.
Yeah, so for me, it was very difficult at first to anchor myself, as Rhea has shared with me so many times, to anchor, find something to hold on to. But I think one of the main things, again, is therapy, or finding someone to talk to through this, which can be very challenging because, like I said earlier, sometimes divorce, going through it is an isolating thing, especially depending on all the intricacies of why and all of those things. But I think having someone that you could be vulnerable with, talk to, just get it all out in the open, and then slowly start to put the pieces together. It is almost impossible to do alone. At least that has been my experience. And I said this recently, I was like, it's so funny that there's so much like premarital counseling and premarital this and that and what to do and communication and blah, blah, blah. And everybody gives you all the tips and tricks for prior to marriage, but no one talks about, is there postmarital counseling? Is there postmarital anything to help you get through such a difficult time? You know, there's mourning counseling or therapy for mourning the death of someone. But I don't think that people consider this in the same way. And so I think just having a person to talk to that can give you some things. There was a point I literally said in the beginning of myself going to therapy was, I don't know the steps. I don't know anything tangible to do. I just know it doesn't feel good and I need to get through it. And so sometimes just the admission of, I don't know how to do this. I don't know how to handle this. I don't know how to put the puzzle pieces back together. That in itself is a really, really big step. And then also getting out, right? Getting some fresh air, communicating with your friends again, reading a magazine, like stupid little, I shouldn't say stupid, but grounding exercises, cleaning your house. Those are things that help me along the way. Listening to music. Music is one of my favorite things to do, to listen to. Just, you can bet in my house at all times there's something playing. There's music going on for me to clean up or to work to or whatever. So yeah, that, find a friend, find a therapist, enlist help, and don't be afraid to say, hey, I need help.
Mm-hmm.
Love that, right? You want to share?
All right. Yeah. I did all the things. I was just like, let's get this heart healed. So we were, when I say we, because I have children, we were in therapy a week after my husband and I moved out of the houses, aren't living in the same houses. So I did therapy. I found podcasts on relationships and breakups that really helped me challenge me in the way that I was either communicating with my former spouse, how I was looking at relationships, as well as challenging me to look within, what's going on inside of me. I attended a divorce care class. If you're in Southern California, this is a shameless plug. ALFC, Abundant Living Family Church, they have a great divorce care class. It's a group, it's co-ed, it's open to the community. That was really good. What else did I do? I found a few people that have walked this whole journey with me. Discretion and secrecy are not one and the same. So discretion is wisdom, but discretion involves other people, right? Secrecy is going to isolate you, and you thinking that you need to keep it a secret and not involve the people who actually are around you and can support you. Here's the other thing. Let people around you, they also need to let you change your mind in your journey, right? Because like I said, the first 6 months, I was like, y'all about to pray with me that we get back together. No one in my group was like, girl, you crazy. I said, okay, that's what we're doing. That's what we're doing. And 6 months came. I was like, nah, you got to pray that I have strength to go ahead and file this paperwork. And so you want people to give you the grace to journey. Those are the people that you should have close to you. Find a place to serve, whether it's volunteer service, it's in your church. Anytime that you're able to give outside of yourself, it broadens your perspective. It reinforces your worth and your place on this earth, that you are created with purpose. Do the little things, like Elena said, I started a garden. My dog's gone and dug that up by now, but I had a garden. So I was a gardener for a short time. I loved putting stuff together in my house and just building things that gave me immediate gratitude, or gratification, I should say, seeing things done. Let's see, music. Music was a way that I could force feed my heart hope, so that I could stay hopeful. I read an article saying that sad music is also good because it allows you to tap into your sad feelings and cry. I cry a lot. These are false lashes. Don't do mascara no more. And but then I also found songs that really just force fed my spirit hope. I had to force feed myself hope. I had to force feed myself, how do I look beyond what I'm feeling in this moment? Yeah.
I have to segue into community because I know there have been nuggets of it discussed from each of you. And I would love to hear about how community can be supportive. So all of you have mentioned the word friend. So I know none of you on here without one friend. But we did get some questions that were pre-submitted, and I'm happy that we're doing good on time, and I'm going to get to some of the comments in the chat. But just to get us kicked off, we're talking about community and how divorce can be ugly. It can be hurtful. It can be hard. It can be sticky. It can be gray. I know Marcus touched on, having to start completely new, meaning if you guys have friends together, and then what happens when the separation occurs. So what do people navigating divorce need from their people? Is it space? Is it support? Is it both? And Rachel, you just touched on the freedom to change your mind. So are there any other things that you guys can think of from your community that would allow for a safe space for you guys? What you would need from us?
I will just real quick. You need both. You need space, and then you need moments just to emote. But you also need that friend. Hey, you've been talking about the same stuff for the last 3 days. Let's talk about something else. You know, I've had friends who, you know, I've helped, who now they were helping me. And I have to say, you know, your husband Andre, he has a uncanny way to say certain things to you that make you be like, ah. But I needed that. He helped me remind me of who I was, because I forgot who I was. So you need friends who love you for you, but who love you enough to know that what you're going through is temporary. It's not forever. It's just a temporary thing, but there's more ahead. Greater is before you than what's behind you. And so really realizing, like, you know, my aunt and my uncle, I call them my surrogate parents, and just going to their house and just sitting and seeing a healthy relationship, a healthy marriage, and just sitting and listening. Not, oh, my marriage wasn't like this. Oh, I wish I had but just enjoying the moment and then allowing them to love on me. That was hard for me, to allow people to just love on me instead of me saying, no, I have to do this. You did this for me. Let me do this. No, let people love on you, because that way you can heal. But you need both. You need moments where, hey, and then, you know, somebody's with you, and you need moments you need to be by yourself so you can heal.
So what I heard you say was a little combination of real talk mixed with a little real love, but mixed with a little, okay, now you're down there for too long. That takes a fine balance. It really does. Who else wants to go? Elena, you want to go?
Yeah, sure. For me, I think I needed to be loved on, to Marcus's point, but I also needed space. And when it was really, really thick and really, really tough, I moved states to get that. I moved states to get support, to, you know, have my mama love on me, cook for me a little bit, you know. I moved miles away from what I considered home at the time to get that, because you need that. But what I will say is, don't, at least for me, it didn't work. Listening to people who have not been in your shoes. I feel like it is so easy for people to say what they would or would not do in the shoes that you are in right now, or how they would handle it or what they thought. And for me, that was I couldn't deal with that easily. So space, and just let's go do something fun. Let's encourage them to, like, get out the house. Let's go for a walk. Let's go to the gym. Let's go, you know, to a concert or whatever the case may be. But to advise from a place and not having so much experience there, it was inflammatory to me.
I don't need to be interrogated. You know, I don't need to be asked, well, did you do this? Have you tried this? Did you talk to so-and-so? Do you know what scripture says? Have you gone to church? How much have you prayed? Did you fast? And these are all questions that I've been asked, you know, and I know it came, I will say, I think it comes with good intention and a good place. But unless I am initiating the conversation saying, hey, I need you to help me in this area, if I'm not explicitly asking for you to address this particular space, don't feel like you have the privilege then to address it on your own. Because even in good intention, you don't know where I am in that moment to receive it or how it's going to affect me. So what you intended for it to be good could not be good for me in that moment, right? So I don't need all the extra questions or what happened. You know, people say, do you mind if I ask what happened? Well, you already asked. It's just, you already asked me. So things like that. Let us who are, I think the better way would be, hey, if you want to talk about it, I'm here to listen. Or how about, what do you need today? I have a friend who'll ask me that. Hey, Rach, what do you need today? And that's been really helpful because that changes day to day. And as Marcus and we've all said, sometimes we want space, sometimes we want community, sometimes I want somebody to wash my dishes for me. But whatever that is, that that you're giving us that space to answer versus you putting on what you think we need in that moment. Let us tell you what we need.
So good. I'm so glad that you all are sharing this, because I know there's so many of us out there that, like I said, divorce affects everyone. And I think sometimes the awkwardness of it all just leaves people clueless as to how they can be supportive. So I'm just so grateful that you guys are sharing these tangible ways for you personally, because everybody's different. I know Elena mentioned the word inflammatory. Rach, you mentioned as well. Those people probably thought they were questioning you in love, but clearly that's not always what you need. So I'm glad. Shawnee, do you want to add anything to that in terms of community and what can be helpful? Uh-oh. Can you hear me? Okay, maybe not. I'm like, wait, can you hear me? Okay, well, maybe not. So let's go to some comments though.
Okay.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
I was just gonna say one thing that, with Rachel, especially if you're involved in church, I was involved in leadership at church. So when we got a divorce, or first we split, like I just stopped going to church because I don't care who you are. Well, you can go because we had 3 different services. Well, you can go to a different service. I actually had a church member call me and say, well, Marcus, you can go to a different service. I'm like, but man, everybody knows me. I'm in leadership. I'm going to see somebody that knows me as something, or they know her. And you want to separate yourself for you just to get clarity, not to call, but just to get clarity. And then by us, her, the kids, I just felt like it wasn't a good deal that, okay, you just told my mom, you want a divorce, and now I see you at church. How do you navigate that? So I felt like I needed to separate myself completely. And that's a tough thing. I mean, that's a tough thing. So I get completely, like what Elena said about moving miles and miles away. I mean, literally going from the other side of town, going to not even, just going to a different church, because, your mama and your aunt, you need to be in church, all that kind of thing. So having that kind of connection. But when you're involved in leadership and you get divorced, that is a tough road.
We got Shawnee back. I know he hasn't shared yet. Could I touch really quick? Yeah, go ahead, Shawnee, and I'll jump in on church.
Yeah, my audio is going in and out a little bit, so you guys bear with me. I appreciate it. I just wanted to say, Rachel brings up, everybody's bringing up some really good points about, I don't want you just kind of, being judgmental, like, hey, did you try this? Did you do that? What I would say is that you're the one who's going through the divorce, who has been through the divorce. You're the only one who's uniquely qualified to know what's best for you. No one else they can give you advice, they can, counsel you, but you're the only one. And that's why it's good to have like a best friend or somebody that really knows you well, because they're not going to be judgmental. They're going to give you the honesty that you need, and they're not going to let you BS them. They're not going to let you say, oh, yeah, I'm good and this and that. They know you. They know you're not good, or they know some of the things that you may be going through or dealing with relating to the divorce. Now, everybody here has a really unique experience, and it's so good to hear all of these different perspectives. Mine is a little bit different. After my divorce, I didn't need like someone to love on me. I needed someone to tell me you're not going to be financially destitute, and that you're going to be able to, you'll still have your money and you're not going to be broke. So there was different conversations for me when somebody was fighting tooth and nail to take everything that you built and everything you were trying to, over the course of years. So that's something it's equally as I guess, taxing on you as far as, you know, communication and you needing somebody to listen to you and be able to be supportive. But again, as far as moving forward and what you need, you're going to be the only one. And I think that is really important after the divorce to take your time. You know, some people, they're used to Marcus's point, they're used to waking up with someone. They're used to someone helping with the kids. They're used to doing all these things. So the idea of not doing that, you may have a tendency to just try and jump right back into a marriage or a committed relationship where you can get some of that sense of normalcy that you're missing. But I think that's a real mistake, that you really should take the time to really evaluate what you need. And as time changes, your needs change. So the same person you were 15 years ago when you got married, you're definitely not that person now. To say, even if it's 6 years, 7 years, you're nowhere near the person you were when you started that marriage. Not only has the marriage changed you, but life has changed you. Your children have changed you. So there's so many complexities that you have to consider before moving on to be a solid whole person for a next meaningful, successful relationship, that you just need that time and you need to really listen to your own mind and really, because again, you're the only one who really at the end of the day has to go to sleep with this decision and wake up with the decision.
Go ahead. I was there. I don't want to cut your thought because I know sometimes you lose it if you don't use it right away. Did you want to add yours, Rach?
I just looked at time. All I was going to say about for church, and you know, this is something to table maybe at a later time. Church doesn't always. I'm also somebody in leadership. I'm one of our worship leaders. Church has not always done a good job when you sit there as a divorcee or you're going through a divorce. But I would encourage others, just because it doesn't do a good job in one area doesn't mean that you need to necessarily put that aside, right? And I found that even in days that I was uncomfortable sitting in church, what I got is bigger than what the man or woman was speaking about, right? That person may have made me feel uncomfortable. But as far as me, again, this is for me speaking as a person of faith and believing in Jesus, that I had to look past that and their own humanity, as well as understand me going to church was good for me. And I wasn't going to be, because of a feeling that day, have that taken away from me too. And I think that's what I got to, as far as this journey too. There were some things that I was just unwilling to have taken from me because I had already lost so much. So I wasn't going to be like, if you like the movies, and now that we used to do movies together, I'm never going to the movies again. No, take it back. Go to the movies. I enjoyed still seeing on the worship team. I was sad. I'm still going to sing on the worship team. Like those little things, I think those are speaks to the other point of tangible things that you can do. Don't relinquish all the things that brought you joy before. Take them back. Figure out how it works with you being a single person and make it work again, because they still have value.
Amen and amen. You guys are hitting on some good points. I'm going to, as I just muted myself, I'm going to highlight some things in the chat. Rachel, I took a little note off your page and I just started the process. But let's go back. I'm going to scroll back so you guys can get some of the feedback from earlier. This is from earlier on. You need people to allow you to change your mind. Force feeding your heart hope. That's bars. Service to other people is key. Everything else I could support regarding a friend changing. Oh, okay, I think the comment before was about if there was abuse involved. Let's see, 100. Marcus, you got that part. People need to remind you who you are. Unsolicited advice, we know, is a no-no. Uniquely qualified. I think that was Shawnee's nuggets of truth right there. Such bravery. I know we did have some pre-submitted questions, and I know we're wrapping close to our time, so I might do some rapid fire. Like I said, if you guys, anybody feels led to answer, this was one of the ones that came earlier, but the question was, are you open to love again? And what would be one thing you want now that'd be different from before? Whoever first, because we have about 5 pre-submitted.
I'll just go again. Yes, I am open for love again, but I know that I need to have a season of being by myself to know what that is, because I knew that I was attracted to toxic love. So I need to know, no. I realized I was attracted to a certain type of woman. And it's like, why? And it's like, oh, okay. It's some rooted issues that I have to deal with from childhood that I have to deal with. So yes, I'm open for love. Love, hey, black women are dope. So, I'm open for love, but I know that in order to do that responsibly and respectfully, I have to first love on me first and really know what love is.
Awesome. Anybody else? Are you open? And what would you want now that might be different from before? Love the plug, Marcus, by the way. Elena?
Yeah. That's a toughie, because dating is just not even easy by a long shot. Things are really, really different. It took me a while to come to terms with the answer. Yes, I am open. Yes, I do desire partnership. However, it has to be the right thing. And actually, instead of something I want differently, one thing that I would say, for me, the biggest thing that I want to be the same that I learned from my previous relationship is the foundation of friendship. That is important, to take your time to get to know someone, to sit on the phone and talk for hours. I know our lives are much different now. We don't have hours to sit on the phone, but like, do people still do that? And I just posted this, like, do people still take their time to really get to know someone, to be their friend, to, be vulnerable? Like, that is so, so important. And that is one of the things I appreciated about my previous relationship, and what I feel like, again, why we are able to keep a level of respect and friendship to this day, is because that was the very foundation of our relationship. And so that's one thing I've had previously, and that's one thing that I would want now. And it's harder to come by than you think.
I love that. I love that you said that, especially that you and your ex are able to maintain a friendship. I think that we didn't dive into that, but I think that is definitely something to be said. So kudos to you. Anybody else?
Yeah, I'm open. No, seriously, I'm open.
Right.
People will probably say, "Baby, you're open too fast," but I know myself, and I know that my heart, where it's at, and where I have the capacity, what I have the capacity for. I value partnership, and that's not just intimately, but I find that I'm a person that looks to partner with people, period, right? Whether it's at work or in friendships, or how can I add to this? And marriage is just one of those things where it is, I think, the ultimate partnership. Something along the same lines as Elena, my former spouse and I were friends for a long time before we started dating. So I think maybe that shifting in how I look at dating now, that dating isn't necessarily for intimacy, but dating is for gathering information for compatibility and partnership, right? Almost like a really nice interview, doing fun things over food because I like food, or whatever it is, right? But looking at it that way, something that I would do differently would probably looking at, can you be someone, it's another saying my friends and I say, can you hold my ish and my banner, right? So can you stick with me and I stick with you when things are hard? Or do you run away when things are hard? Do you avoid hard things? Do you avoid hard conversations? And then the other side of that, when things are great, do you know how to celebrate me? Can I celebrate you? Are you intimidated by those things? So can you hold my ish and can you hold my banner? That would be what I would do differently this time around.
I love that. Everything you're saying is like t-shirt worthy, right? I love that. So we had just anybody want to chime in on that? Because we having a rapid fire. I gave you guys my word. So we have about 4 questions left, and I put one in the chat. So please feel free to chime in, because I got an amen on this one. About what if you're friends with both parties? Do you need someone on your side to feel safe during the transition? And so I was just about to ask that question. How do you support the healing of both parties in that case? If anybody has any insight on that.
I would just say, in my own personal situation, that happened to me, where I thought someone was going to be on my side and have my best interest. Not that they should be disrespectful to my, my ex-spouse, but understanding that, don't play both sides. And what happened is that whatever I would tell that person would go back and tell my ex-wife, and it's like, what are you doing? So I think you have to, if you're friends with both of us, then be our friend. Don't dig whatever information, be honest. Hey, if you tell me something, I'm more likely probably going to tell your spouse, because I think at the end of the day, a lot of people would, I think someone mentioned it earlier, that when you get married, you're bringing not just family together, you're bringing friends, you're bringing community together. So when you get a divorce, there's the community is not, they're hurt. And there's some people who want you to be together, not because, oh, that's the right thing to do or they feel it's best, but because you being together benefits them. So it's hard to figure out who's on your side and not. So, but if you're a person who, you're friends with both spouses, I think you should just respect both of them, respect their space, and back away. And if that person reaches out to you to talk, cool. But I think whatever one spouse says to you, that should stay there. And whatever the other spouse says to you, that should stay with them. Stay out of it, because shots will get fired and you will get hit. I think just be respectful for that. But that I had to, being betrayed by someone that you love is very hurtful. The divorce is hurtful, but being betrayed by the person that you thought was your friend, who was on your side, is 10 times as worse than the divorce itself.
Yeah, we call that the messy spirit, Marcus, and we don't have no time for that. So what about some ways that people, so basically what I heard you say is keep your business to yourself. Obviously that's just fundamental life rules there. And I'm sorry that happened, because Lord knows it only adds to the messiness of it all. I saw, let's go back. We got slogans. That one is big too. Okay, we had another question that came up about what point in the process of divorcing is it appropriate to announce to friends and family?
I'll jump in. When you're ready. There is no timeline. So when you are ready, and you don't need to force that timeline. You also don't have to tell everybody your business. People will know as they know. I had an aunt that was married into the family come and be like, nobody told me Rachel was divorced. I didn't know I was supposed to post about it. So tell who you need to tell, that you feel comfortable telling. And like anything else, people will eventually know, and don't feel obligated. So if you're not ready, once you start telling people, people will have questions and people will have something to say. So if you're not ready for that, then you're not ready to tell anybody yet. So that's my 2 cents.
Good segue into this other question, and that was about what is a way to communicate it once you are ready, since you just said whenever you're ready, that's respectful and considerate of your community, yourself, your children, which all of you have touched on in some way, and yourself and your ex. Is there any tips on the respectable way to do so? Not on social media, I guess.
Can I jump in one more time? Keep in mind, however you say it, you can't take it back. So something that has helped me in telling my story, because there's a lot of pieces that people don't need to know, is I want to divorce well. So what I say today, how is that going to affect 5 years from now, 15 years from now? if it was to circle back and my children were to hear this, I'm not saying that you don't tell the truth. It's, how much of your house do you want to show? And so one of the things that has also helped me is focus on some of the stuff that, if you can, is there something that your former spouse has done well or that you're doing well right now? So one of the things and one of the ways that I tell my narrative is that, which is honest, my husband didn't want to be a husband anymore, but he did want to be a father. And that's what we've chosen. And I've respected that choice. However, people want to read into that. And if I want to share more, then I'll share more. So look for ways that is not, it's honest, but you are not shaming, bashing, or disrespecting the other party, because especially if you have children, that's still your child's mother or your child's father. And that means for the rest of your life, y'all gonna be tied to each other, because as long as they're alive, you will be connected. So keep that in mind.
Love that you shared that. Love, love, love. So you guys, I want to honor my word to you. I did put the rest of the questions. I think we got through 3 out of actually 4, because that was the 4th one. So there's 2 more. How are we doing on time? Do we go for the last 2, or do I let you all share your closing thoughts? Do you want to do rapid fire? Okay, let's do the last 2. Okay, perfect. So here's one that was submitted. The connection formed through marriage is complex, and divorce doesn't always sever those connections. So, and I copied and pasted the way the person DM'd it to me. So like, where are you now? Do you love, like, dislike, or hate your ex? That's exactly the way it was written. So shout out to the person who sent that. Quite a phrase there. So basically, let's get to the nuts and bolts. We know it's complex. So where are you now? Now, remember, this platform is here to uplift and encourage. If you hate or dislike, you can keep it real, but you could put it in the chat. I'm just kidding.
I would say that I respect my ex-wife for who and what she is. She is. We're 2 totally different individuals. I'm jazz, and well, she's not rock and roll, but she's R&B. Which are similar music but different flavors. And so how she moves and navigates is one way, how I move and navigate one way. I've actually seen my ex-wife in public at funerals. And we've, talked here and there about certain people who've passed away, but we're respectful for each other. So no, we're not hanging out with each other. We're not calling each other. I give her space. She gives me my space. And, for her birthday, she wished me, my birthday's in January. She wished me happy birthday. I wish her happy birthday on her birthday. So, that's where it is. And we're good with that. We're good. I think a key word that maybe we didn't mention, we're good with our boundaries. I've set boundaries. She's set boundaries. So we're good with our boundaries.
Awesome. Who wants to come next? I love that. Boundaries are key. That's going to be part 2. Boundaries, a whole episode on boundaries. So where are you now? Let me put the question back up there, or we can go to the next one if you don't, because I did say you don't have to answer each question.
I'll answer that one. My ex and I are homies. We really are. And I'm proud of that. I don't have any shame about that at all. It took us some time to get there, obviously, because you go through the motions and all the steps and, the divorce process. And so you have to get back to a place of healing and all of that. But we are good friends, and we do have those boundaries. There are certain things that we don't talk about, obviously, but we are good friends, and he is a person who is going to be in my life for the rest of my life. And so if that is the case, I cannot. My heart just doesn't have the space, the time, and I don't have the energy to hold it. So I'd rather navigate it this way. And so that's my friend. And we're like thick as thieves, especially, we have children together. So we always have to you know, come together for them. So it took a while to get back to that place, but we're good.
And I think it's a very unique place. So, I mean, I very rarely have heard that. So I honor you for that. Marcus, you were going to say something? Or Shawnee?
Yeah, what I'm going to skip over the first question, the like, dislike question. They say if you don't have something good to say, don't say anything at all about that. So let's skip over that part. And let's just go to there were a lot of good comments brought up about boundaries, which is just really important, is like respecting someone's boundaries. So if you're in a marriage, especially if you're used to handling everything for someone or kind of facilitating, and a lot of times in a situation in a marriage, a man may be, or the husband may be facilitating a lot of the things or taking more of a dominant role, depending on what your setup is. In my household, I'm more of I guess a more traditional setup. I had like protector and provider. That's what I'm good at. That's what I was doing. So some of those things were kind of rolling over after the divorce as far as reliance on me for certain things. But that does not work or transition well once you are in a committed relationship outside, after your marriage, so establishing boundaries are important because you can't really give everything to a new situation if you are still having, someone encroach pretty much on, or always like, what do they say? Like a habitual line stepper, always trying to step over and kind of, and when you have kids, they tend to believe, and sometimes they tend to believe that they have a right, but they don't. They don't have a right. If you're going to communicate with me, you have to communicate. If the situation is where if you don't know your boundaries and you're not able to respect the boundaries and respect my relationship, then the communication has to be limited to just communication about the child. And I mean, just about the child. No trying to ask extra questions or things that can wait till later on. So everybody's experience is different, but I would say that I'm in a really good place and space now, and I have respect for my ex-wife. But there are, and I know this is really a topic for another day about boundaries, because I could talk to you for 2 more hours about just boundaries and what's going on with that and where you have a bunch of issues. But I'd say just having a mutual respect is very important. And you, especially when you have kids, you really don't. And if you're an active father like me, you have joint custody, you don't have a choice but to interact with them. So the better you are at being able to do that, the better it is for the children, the better it is for, just the overall relationship, because I don't want my son to see me have a situation where I'm not, or he can sense, because kids, they can sense everything. They're, especially as they get older, they're going to know, what I mean, that people, stuff's not, it's not a harmonious type of situation. So the better you are at not faking it, but the better you are at just creating it, the better it is going to be for you. So I just say that I have a mutual respect, and I think that boundaries is extremely important. And I've learned that, and I would have to say that that was a learning process for me, was learning that, you have to have those boundaries in order to really have a successful new relationship or marriage. And that's, I guess, basically my take on it.
Ooh, it was a good take that is, Shawnee. You didn't just drop the nugget of inspiration, because those boundaries, one little thing that I know I experienced in both my practice and also personal life with a friend is, even if there's no romantic connection, those boundaries are so key, because when that person tries to move on, then it can become a power struggle. And even without there being a romantic connection, without the proper boundaries in place, it makes it miserable for those new relationships. So I'm so grateful. Boundaries coming up in the future. Let's go ahead and segue, guys. I want to hear some other nuggets of final thoughts as we wrap up our episode. That was awesome. Boundaries. What other closing thoughts do you guys have about how we can better navigate tough breakups, divorce, joy while carrying grief? Anything that comes out. And guys, I'll get to some of your comments and then we'll wrap it up.
Let's see. I'll do final comments and answer that last question really quick. So I did a lily pad hop. When emotions were raw, I could say we probably both did not like each other. But as time has passed, we get along very well now. We found a rhythm. It took us some time to do that. And there is a mutual love for because we're the mother and father of our children. And that's changed. And I also think I have a unique perspective at looking at people now and recognizing, you know, that we're all walking around with brokenness, and learning how to navigate that. And sometimes we do it well and sometimes we don't. And I would want grace extended to me. So learning how to extend that grace to others with boundaries. With boundaries. You still need the boundaries. I would say my closing thoughts and nuggets: make up in your mind to live. Just don't survive. Just don't go through the motions. One of the things I told my kids was like, this is gonna suck. We are made to do the hard things, but I promise you, we are going to live. And we are doing just that. And that gave us all the space to, when it was hard, to allow it to be hard. We learned to lament and be angry and to be sad and to cry and throw pillows. I mean, we did some kind of crazy things in our house, but it allowed the capacity of our hearts. I used to say, don't let your heart drown, because if you stuff all that inside, you're drowning your heart, and your heart can't be drowned. So be determined to live, knowing that living means I experience all things, and that things get better in time. There's scripture in Ecclesiastes that says things are beautiful in time. So the hard will pass, and so will the good. So just know when it's hard, it will end. And when it's good, let the good be good, because that will also end, and that will help us to appreciate all that is great in our lives. So yes, be determined to live.
And, oh, poetic, beautiful, awesome, amazing. We got another question in there, but I don't want to break up the moment. So I'll let you guys give your thoughts, and then we'll end with that, because it's a really good one that involves children.
Well, I was gonna say real quick final thought is, as Rachel said, this too shall pass. You know, right now is not forever, but enjoy life. Enjoy. I find myself now enjoying new discoveries about who I am and what I like to do now, and being by myself, and just having fun in the moment of, you know, if I want to go out and I'm in the back and look at the stars, I can go out and look at the stars. If I just want to drive down to the beach, I can do that and drive down to the beach and just enjoy those moments. And as I reflect and I cry about this moment, or I remember a great moment, I allow myself to do that. I'm not, oh, I don't want to reflect. No, because again, they were good and they were bad. So you just gotta allow yourself to go through and just enjoy. And healing is a process. It's ongoing. And just take your time. Just take your time.
Love it. It's so hard for me to be. I'm so present, and I'm trying to be a scribe. It's like, oh, but it's good. I'm glad. I was trying to put nuggets as each of you were speaking. All right. So final thoughts. And you know, Rachel, I took a note off your page. So to my panelists, we're gonna close after you guys give your final thoughts. But please, we have some other questions that came in, and I definitely want to hear the answers to those. So please, if you can, just put a little reply on the YouTube page. It's going to be up. But one of them involved like how children handled the transition. And so I think that's a really key one, given that most of you, with the exception of Marcus, have children that were affected by divorce. So I think that is excellent. Thank you, audience. And closing thoughts, Mr. Boundaries himself or Elena, before we end?
Hi.
Go ahead, Elena. I'll go last.
Okay. I'll just say that there is no right or wrong way to do any of this. All of our experiences are different. The reasons, the hurt, the pain, the anger, whatever it is that you experience as a result is your own feelings to have. And there is no right or wrong. You get to determine, you get to decide how you want the rest of your life to be, how you want this story to go. You have a lot more power than you probably think you have, especially as you're going through it. Don't be discouraged because there is light at the end of the tunnel, and don't judge yourself for how long it takes you to get to that light. Sometimes for some, it's not so long. For others, it's a lot longer, and that's okay too. But you can have whatever end result you want to have. That's it.
Love, love, love. Mr. Boundaries, round us
Yeah,
out.
I guess just to wrap up, I just would say just look introspectively and just decide what's best for you. Because yes, divorce is the end. It's the end, but it's also the beginning. It's the beginning of the rest of your life. You have a new opportunity to make much better decisions than you previously made when you had less knowledge and information than you had before. So now you're in a position to win. You just have to look at it, introspectively look at yourself and say, what's going to be best for me? And not even what's going to be best for my kids and all that. Kind of like on the airplane when the mask comes down and, you have to secure yourself first before you secure the child. That's what you have to do. You have to make sure that you're comfortable moving forward so that you can also lead your family and your children forward as well. So I would just say, just look at it as a beginning. And a lot of times people just take too long looking at this as, oh, this is the end, the end, the end, when it's really, truly the beginning. Whatever beginning you want to make moving forward, you're able to do that. So you should do it.
I'm loving all this empowerment flowing around because that's exactly who I am. It's like we can create the narrative for any storyline that we want to live. I believe that wholeheartedly. And so I want to say thank you guys so much. I'm just always so overjoyed when people stay throughout the whole entire time, all 1 hour and 27 minutes. But please go back in the chat to my guest if you guys want to answer the questions. We have some amazing, I'll just flash some just since we're ending. I was giving you guys all the love in the chat. Better at creating it and not faking it. We talked about boundaries. We talked about live. The question that came up that I want you all, this is the after show, is about how children have handled the adjustment so far. That is a really good one. So you guys have to look out because I'm going to be on my own page looking for that answer. Wow, Rachel, that's beautiful. Let the good be good. Love that. Living means I experience all things, good and the bad. I love that. This too shall pass. Enjoy life. You guys are so awesome. Kimberly says we need a part 2. Such a great conversation. Thank you guys so much for your vulnerability. And I'm going to segue into my thank you. I appreciate you all being willing enough and brave enough because this topic scared some people off. And I just know that anything we do is always with purpose and intention. So my heart is with each one of you. And I just want to say thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you so much. So guys, please make sure you continue to tune in. And we appreciate your attentiveness this entire time. Have a good night.
Thanks, Leah. Take care.